Oh, Crash. The farmer's market is tomorrow, and my wampa trees won't grow, for my orchard is riddled with greedy worms. If you rid my land of these pests, I'll give you this power crystal.
I'm an evil scientist. What do you expect? This isn't a game.
So I've been playing Crash Bandicoot Twinsanity. So, after making 3 very successful platformers, and then knocked it out of the park by making one of the most refined kart races of the era, you decided to outright sell the license. But sir, no buts. But butts are so succulent and tasty. Yes, quite indeed. But that is not the point, good sir. The point is that we lost a fuck of a whole lot of potential money here because of you assholes straight up selling the license. And better yet, who is going to take the torch from here on out? I think you will find that will be me. Bam, bam, bam. Now made by Traveler's Tales, Crash Twinsanity once again stars the titular Crash Bandicoot and the evil Dr. Cortex. And this time, Tex done be cross-dressing in an attempt to fool Crash into thinking that he's his sister. But, of course, his plan goes awry. Aliens show up, and in a hilarious plot twist, they end up having to work together. Oh my god, shenanigans! Truth be told though, the game's presentation is actually quite funny. It would have been easy for a game like this to take the generic wacky zany route. And where it in some ways kinda does here and there, they definitely have some very talented comedic writers on board. And if not, then they sure as fuck had a voice cast that fit the bill. I can imagine that they were very proud of what they had here. So proud in fact that they made all the cutscenes unskippable. So naturally, dying to a boss with a pre-roll cutscene is one hell of a fucking experience. But more on that later. In any case, me and my mouth did exclamate quite a few audible ha-has throughout the game. And it's also a fun, cute little adventure that takes you on a trip through a nice variety of varied areas. Now, an easy thing to do would have been to go the Wrath of Cortex route and just straight up copy everything Naughty Dog did, only then fail rather badly because you aren't Naughty Dog. But this time, Traveler's Tales actually thought with their brains for a bit and somehow managed to make something that still feels very much in line with Crash Blamperdamp, but also uniquely its own. And by uniquely its own, I mean taking a few pages from Rare's sandboxy level design and filling it with a shit ton of puzzly platformery challenges. The part where it stays true to the OG Crash, however, is in the faster-paced platforming sections and the "oh no, something is chasing me" bits. It's more or less an amalgamation of most of everything 3D platformer stood for at the time, and I think that that's a major reason as to why it's loved as much as it is by both Crash fans and non-Crash fans. Anyway, as I said, Tex and Crash end up working together through circumstance. And thus, the game has plenty of mechanics and ideas that center around them doing that. Instead of just running around and picking up shit or only jumping around the place, you get to use Cortex as a hammer, surf on him, and have the both of them roll up into a cartoon ball of conflict. And there's even some parts where you need to run ahead of Tex to disable traps and flip switches to turn bridges and get bitches, while he runs along a set path being followed or whatever. And all of that's actually pretty fucking awesome. Not brilliant in any way, but certainly fun enough if you ask me. The only downside is that the good intentions and somewhat clever design happen to come with a rather disappointing side dish of fuck. Yeah, the game is a bit floaty, janky, glitchy. In fact, the game is very fucking floaty, janky, glitchy. I mean, here's some footage of me awkwardly tripping on geometry, clearly not optimal for platforming. Or how about some footage of Crash getting ganked by pigs? Fan service aside though, shit like this really shouldn't fly. And adding to the fuck is the fact that the game feels a little bit off contextually. Things like the floaty yet weighty jumping or tripping when you fall from higher grounds, even dying on impact sometimes, really makes for a very uncomfortable beverage to go with your side dish of fuck. Like fucking falling damage in a platformer? Really? What other game other than Bubsy does that? Shit's weird. And I'm afraid that that's just the drinks and side dish. I haven't even gotten to the dessert they make you sit through halfway. Thing is that during one instance where the game makes you play through a previously visited level, it actually resets the entire state of the stage back to how it would have been had this been a first time run. So the bosses, collectibles, and cutscenes were all there in their unskippable virgin playthrough glory. It's really fucking weird. And it almost leads me to believe that God left this game unfinished. That would explain why the game has so many hallmarks of a great fucking game, alongside the hallmarks of a fucking broken piece of shit. Hell, Tex himself even comments on the state of the game at one point.
Come now, as we explore a new dimension! It should have been 2 new dimensions, but we ran out of time.
It's all rather jarring to me. And while I do think that it's very possible to look past it, I still find it a little bit of a shame. That said though, the gameplay here is actually pretty good when it works. There's quite a surprising amount of variety, and unlike the minigamey focus of the 3rd and 4th games, I legitimately argue that this works, as instead of just kinda ham-fisting it in there, they completely shifted their focus altogether. So the game is definitely more of a puzzle platformer than anything. This slows the game's overall pace down quite considerably, which makes having to redo sections upon death a much bigger chore. For one, there's a lot of waiting going on here. Waiting on mechanics to trigger, standing on buttons, hanging around on slowly moving platforms, that sort of thing. In a way, I can also see this as a less than elegant way to make up for the somewhat laggy controls and poor depth perception, which do suck pretty bad in some instances. And considering how fast-paced and snappy the first 3 games were, it is quite the contrast. I like it though. Despite being a bit very fucking awkward at times, I have to admit that I had great fun flipping switches, rolling balls into holes, and watching all the machines do things around me as a result. It's a bit simple perhaps when you get right down to it, but still rewarding enough to a point where I would say that this game is a fun. And especially later on, the puzzles get a good shot of adrenaline as well, with some rather clever platforming sections, revolving around audio-visual cues and timing and shit. There are some stages where they make you play as other characters entirely, which honestly could have been fleshed out a bit more mechanically, but they still create a nice change of pace nonetheless. Things like the shooter sections with Cortex or the wilder platformy bits with his niece who has a grapple arm are still pretty cool. Bruv. So yeah, while I'd say that it's definitely a bit too apparent that this game wasn't given enough time, I do still very much recommend it to those what like 3D platformers. You could certainly do a lot worse. And if the gameplay doesn't suit your tastes, then maybe its presentation will get your juices flowing. You sick furry fuck. As I said, the game is quite legitimately funny, and the world is pretty impressive too. It's quite different from what the other Crash games did in some ways, but as a kid you kinda tend to fill in the blanks in terms of characters and stuff. Headcanon, I believe they call it. And this game pretty much nails the Cartoon Networky / Adult Swimmy vibe I always imagined these characters to have if they were fleshed out properly. And I honestly love the game for it. The music, the satire, and the overall atmosphere I get from this game are pretty goddamn solid. And maybe this is due to the slight jank, but it can also be quite the challenging little game as well. Completing certain sections and finally making it to the next checkpoint always felt pretty good. Add to that the fact that every stage feels very distinct both in their presentation and what they offer gameplay-wise, and you end up with a game that has a pretty great sense of progression and reward, which still made a lot of fun for me to play through despite its many, many flaws. So yeah, fish?